This is the FRC Roundtable, coming to you all the way from Minnesota. Your host team 2052 Nightcrawler presents this weekly FRC gathering where FIRST Robotics competition teams take cooperation off the field. Share your knowledge, give and get advice, solve a challenge, or celebrate what makes your team special. 3, 2, 1, go!
See if I can share it.
By the way, I just started the recording on this, so Ryan, if you want to share your video again so that it gets into the recording, we can do that. But I forgot to start it 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, we can do that.
Are
Ian,
able
you
to
kick
share?
it off though.
Yeah, are you able to share,
Okay.
Ian? Okay, there you go. We can see
Well,
it.
I don't know if you can see it.
Yep, we
this
can see it.
I don't think this was at full speed because it was very uncontrollable for not having drive practice at full speed. But this was.
So are those really 8-inch pneumatic wheels or are they 6s?
Those are 8-inch pneumatic wheels. So we modified the drop center on our. Oh, I don't know if I'm still sharing. No, I
Nope,
don't
you
think I-
canceled it.
Okay, good. So we modified the drop center on a kit chassis. Basically that allows it so we have extra height, extra clearance, floor clearance, that when we're going over the charge station, we shouldn't get caught or slowed down by that lip. We're a little worried about beaching ourselves on cones, but from the preliminary tests, it seems like we should just be pushing them around rather than getting stuck on them.
That's good testing.
Yeah, those are 8-inch. They seem like 6 inches because it's like the entire robot is shrunk down to the point where it's just like,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I think it weighs like 50 pounds without battery and bumper.
We have some really light robots this year. All right, Ryan, you want to share your video again so we can make sure it's on the recording?
Sure, yeah, I can do that. Found a different video too, so I'll play this one, then I'll play the other one. But Serve Drive is working well. ARM is not functional as of yet. That's kind of the goal for this week, is to get, set points set up for, pre-defined positions for the ARM and the intake. But once we get to that point, we should hopefully be doing practice on Saturday if things go well. But the goal for the test that I'm showing on the video right now is to find out if we were capable of tipping the robot over. This is with no ballast on there, but obviously not on carpet. I think we're debating right now. I think we're probably going to end up at 125 pounds. We're probably going to max out our ballast. And the way that we're looking at doing that is getting 3/4 inch by 1.5 inch steel bars and putting them inside of our 1x2 aluminum frame and then bolting them in. So that's our current plan anyway. We've got other ideas for ballast as well.
That is very clever. I had not considered that. I know that I don't think I'm sharing any secrets, but Fire Bears have traditionally maxed out their bumper weight. They put a steel frame around their bumpers, and so they make their bumpers the maximum weight possible to keep their center of gravity low.
Those rules got nerfed a little bit. Bumpers used to be 20 pounds, I believe, for the limit. And now it's down to, correct me if I'm wrong, John, I think it's 14.
We cut
2 pounds.
We cut a 3/16-inch steel belly pan for one of our teams instead of the typical aluminum belly pan. So that's 25 pounds in itself at the lowest point possible. So
we've been talking about doing that too. Although I think we might go with an aluminum belly pan and line the bottom with steel on the inside, so that we can strategically shift it forward and backward if we need to. We'll see.
I'm surprised at how little how little marks that those rev wheels leave on a concrete floor. I didn't see any.
Yeah, they're not bad at all. They're rubber wheels, so if you take a tennis ball, the little marks that they do leave, they're easy to get up, but they haven't been bad at all.
That's right. How did the rev modules go? Obviously it went well, since you're already driving your swerve and having never done it before.
I think I'm of the opinion at this point that the rev swerve drive is not that much harder than the kit parts tank drive. The programming is more difficult, but mechanically it's actually a lot easier than doing a tank drive. I think almost any team can do it. The sample code that they have, it's really, really nice. The one thing I would caution though, and this is new information coming out, but you might want to have a limit on how quickly the modules rotate the wheel. Greg and Rev are posting an update to the example code where they're going to put a slew rate limiter on the rotation, because if you don't put that on and the wheel is allowed to rotate while you're driving at full speed and you're on carpet, it'll actually mechanically rip the tread off the rubber wheel. So we've only been practicing on the concrete. We haven't experienced that, but I'm being told that we need to put a slew rate limiter to prevent it in the future.
That is a good tip. Yeah, I think a lot of teams at competition lost their blue nitrile tread because they didn't have a slew rate limiter on their acceleration and deceleration, which we did because we were tipping our robot on two wheels when there was just a chassis. But it turned out that that was a good thing for us, and we never lost any blue nitrile during competition. We never had it kind of like ripped off during a match. So yeah, slew rate limiter, those are super helpful for swerve drive. Does anybody else have any updates they want to share, or should we jump into our leadership topic?
I posted our video on the chat, so if people want to check it out in their leisure, they sure can.
I saw that earlier today. It's a great video. It's a big arm. Do you have any concerns about tipping over?
I don't know. We're on a swerve too, and those things are very, I mean, they can change direction instantly. So yeah, kind of. But I don't know. We're following pretty closely along with what the West Coast Products competitive concept was. And, you know, they didn't look like they were running real full speed with that thing. So I don't know, get it together, see what happens. But
well, I think I shared a couple of weeks ago that we're using the Swerve Drive Specialties inverted this year, and we're using Neos, which we've never done before. And last year we used the SDS library because we could not figure out why our WPI lib code didn't work. And I'm happy to report that our lead programmer, Matt, was able to get a simple triangle autonomous routine with rotations to work with the WPI lib modules or libraries. So I'm very happy to have crossed that hurdle this year. We could not get the WPI lib. We had some type of an issue. We couldn't track it down, but Matt has figured that out for us this year. All right. Any other robot updates? Anybody want to share a video or a photo? Just give a status update. Otherwise, we'll move on to leadership topics. Going once, going twice. All right. So one of the suggestions last week in terms of topics that we would discuss tonight was to talk about how teams chose Drive Team. And I suggested we expand that into just leadership in general. How do you pick your student leaders, whether they're captains or Drive Team members or other representatives that you might have that represent your team? The floor is open. So if anyone has a story they want to share, specific questions they want to ask, please, by all means, go ahead. I don't have to start off every discussion.
Well, I'd say for Drive Team, what we always do is we have a written test at the beginning for everybody that's interested, just on the rules. because and then we require 80% just to actually try out for driver or any of the positions. And then we kind of start from there as we take the people that have passed and we run them, basically have them run an obstacle course and a sample stuff and see how fast they can pass, see whether they can drive, backwards and add a robot away from them, that type of stuff. And we kind of pick our way through there. We have one student that's not trying out and two mentors that do the picking. And then we kind of work from the driver. And as we add people, they get their opinion in there too. Because we've had problems in the past where you'll get a human player and a driver that just don't get along sometimes. And you can't, if they have to work together, it's not going to work. So we always try and make sure that the operator and the driver are, comfortable with each other and the drive coach is comfortable with them.
Do you also have your technician take the rules exam as well? So everybody who's on the drive team takes it?
Well, last year our technician took the test. He didn't pass, but he was on there because he was specifically the programmer that we needed to down in the pits, down on the field to help calibrating that type of stuff. So he was specifically down there for software.
Thanks, John. Anyone have a different process?
I was going to say the other thing we've done is we've said that there's a requirement to how much you have to practice, and there's a list of requirements that the driver has to have. Because we had a problem one year where somebody got named driver, and they were like, "Well, I'm the driver, and I don't have to practice this year," and it really caused a lot of problems. So we have a process for they have to practice this much, and if they aren't, these are the people that are responsible for, making corrections.
Mm-hmm.
So 5464 in Cambridge does the students pick our drive team. We do a test. They do have to take a test because obviously the rules, but the whole team actually has to take a test regardless, because we find the kids in the stands need to understand the game as well. But our drive team does have to pass a test. Our percentage is just the same, 80% or higher. Our drivers are usually drivers who have been on the drive team for a while. So this year we have two drive team members already that moved up from last year. And then we incorporate one freshman every year. So there's a new student at least on the drive team every year, and that's all picked by the captains and the department heads. So the coaches and mentors, of course, we always have final say in case we need to do some changes. One year I had to pull a main driver out in I don't remember what year that was. So that was hard. We had to switch out our main driver in competition and switch it up with somebody else. But for the most part, the students pick and they do so if they pass a test, they're eligible to be on drive team. But they also have to do enough hours. So our kids don't get to do those things at the end if they're not working their hours and getting their hours in at practice. So that's how 5464 does it.
Well, I can share that Nightcrawler does a rules test as well, and everyone that wants to be on the drive team, including the technician and human player, have to take the rules test. I don't administer the rules test, our drive coach does. So I'm not sure what the percentage is. And then we give those that pass the rules tests a few days of practice driving. Most of them drive at the off-season competitions, but we always want to make sure that they get some practice in before we do a skills evaluation, which is sort of an obstacle course thing. And can you get through the obstacle course? How fast and how many cones did you tip over when you did that? We also do sort of a psychological evaluation, a temperament evaluation. Two of our mentors really enjoy this part of the sort of evaluation where they'll make up a game, they'll explain the rules to the game. Often they'll leave some of the rules out. One year they had a block stacking game, and the students would all stack blocks, and someone would just knock over the blocks to see if they would just recover quickly or get upset about the whole deal. try to simulate those situations in a competition where you get a penalty, but it's not called, or someone calls a penalty on you. How do you handle those kind of stress situations? Um, I don't think anyone's ever ruled out because of that, but I think it has given us a good gauge of how people react and their response to difficult situations. Um, I think the students who go through that process, it helps them probably more appreciate the fact that, oh, yeah, things, there are going to be rules, penalties that'll be called on me that I didn't know about, or something's not going to be fair, and I just have to put my head down and continue through. So that's a fun part of our driver evaluation.
I'll let Joseph go. He raised his hand.
Yeah, go ahead, Joseph.
Oh, yeah. I don't. I can't really comment on our driver practice. Rasmus, who's on the call, could probably speak to that more. Mine is more of a question on how do your teams deal with post driver selection process and the feelings that can arise among students after that. I know that these positions are coveted by certain students more, and how do you deal with the I want to say aftermath, it's very dramatic, but how do you deal with the post-decision process and how that might affect student well-being?
No, I think that's a great question. It goes beyond just drive team. It's all leadership positions on the team. And I know for us, the first step is to talk with the student individually before we announce anything as a team, so that they have a chance to process it before they have to acknowledge it in front of their peers. And, you have to be able to provide constructive feedback and try to give them a path towards something else they would be interested in, if they don't make it. So if it's a drive team or a leadership position, try to guide them towards, how they can continue to contribute and still have fun while participating.
It's really similar at Cambridge. The 1 year we had a student actually quit the team when he didn't make drive team, which is unfortunate. He had been in the program since our middle school program. And that year the kids they got a winner banner, and that student who'd been in it for 6 years was not there because he walked off because he didn't get the driver role. That's only happened once. And it's unfortunate, it's such a shame because they really want it. But other than that, it's the same process. I talk to the students individually once their positions are decided. That way they don't get blindsided. And then, a lot of things are done by team vote. So we do secret ballots. And we do that so it takes the heat off our captains. So our captains are not in the line of fire. So that does help that process a little for us as well. I find that now that our team has shrunk so much, when our team was bigger and we had 35 kids, we had this issue a lot more. But we've also had some kids really stressed out in that position, and the team is really close. So many of our kids know how stressful it is and are not as interested in it, because they've been in it for a while. So that's what we do at Cambridge.
I'll comment on the small team scale. Up in Cass Lake, we got 2 teams because we're insane. And then our drivers have typically been our lead build students too, because they've put that whole thing together and they designed it, and they know what that robot is capable of and how not to break it. We don't have a lot of safety controls within our system just because that's a weak point for us. But like, for instance, to climb last year with 3134's machine, if you did not know how to operate that properly, you were going to break stuff every time you tried to climb. But the person that built that robot was also the person that was driving that robot and actuating those things that made it do it. And she knew exactly what it was capable of and what it wasn't. So and those tend to be the kids that put in the most hours anyway, and probably deserve the opportunity to do that. We don't do tryouts necessarily. She naturally has the most experience because she's putting in the time and testing things that she's building. So from a small team perspective like us, that's kind of how we go.
In regard to student well-being, to Joseph's point, I thought that was a really good question. The thing that I do is I try to de-emphasize the importance of the driver and operator role by accentuating the importance of the scout captain, the build captain, the pit captain, the safety captain. You know, it takes a lot of dedicated students and mentors to run an effective team and to do well at a competition. So if you're not the driver, there is a role for you to, you know, contribute to the team well-being at the competition. And I try to accentuate the benefits of that. Historically, I haven't had a ton of difficulty, consoling the drive team. I've always been a part of the drive team selection process on 4607. And we've done tryouts, we've done, rules tests like others have mentioned. This year, I've got a really difficult challenge, being on a new team, inheriting a culture. And not only that, but I've also got a ton of really qualified students. And I think a lot of them also want to be on the drive team. A couple of them are on the call here today. But I'd like to tell you, I value the feedback and input that everyone's providing. And I'm listening closely to try to figure out how I'm going to, go forward with 60-45.
I think the point that you made, Ryan, about the scouts and the scout captain is huge, because to me, it's almost the most valuable role when you're at that alliance selection, which is huge. And so really, I mean, crazy for us, that's almost the hardest position to fill as scouts, but yet it's the most important, and the communication that they have with the drive team is so valuable. So it's really, I'm going to steal that from you, because I think it's really almost, I don't want to say more important, but I mean, maybe at the end.
When it comes to winning a tournament, I think the scout captain and having an effective scouting, processing the data, everything that goes into scouting contributes as much to winning as your drive team does.
Yep. I totally agree.
Yeah, I think this year, especially because you got multiple game elements. So I think there's actually more to scout this year than like last year was just how much you could do.
I have a question for the group. We don't have any of those sub teams, division of labor, and it's really a neat organization. But when you only see one kid here, see two there, see, on a lucky day, you see three, you're like, yeah, I better have enough tasks for everyone. It's kind of really hard to, to organize like that, to say, because if, let's say, Joseph was my, bill captain, and Joseph comes one every 2 days, and then he comes and something else happened, he got to go. And then, Lexi is, the cat person, but Lexi is there every day. It's really hard to say, let's be in that position where it's like, that rigid structure. And so I kind of find myself in this muddy. And so I'm asking for your opinion, because my approach has been like, you know what, you're here, we build a robot. And when it comes to the role you function at, regional, first of all, I instituted something from, I borrowed several opinions from NMRC coaches and other coaches like, Scott, and saying, if you are going to build this robot, you deserve to go and travel with the team. If you're going to just be one of those things on your back burner, you show up when you feel like it, I'm sorry, we're not using team resources on you. I don't care even if you pay your participation fees, because Pizza alone have paid for that participation fees, and it's just one of those things. So I don't know. What do you guys do? I'm pretty sure there are some smaller teams probably in the group that, have better ideas than a second-year rookie guy has in mind. So
Well, I know, we're smaller than we used to be because of COVID. Coming out of COVID, we dropped down to about 10 students. Now we're back up to 15 this year. But, when we shrunk, we cut down the amount of stuff we do. So we still had some sub teams going on, but, we didn't do all the same amount of outreach and planning for events and such. And then as the team grows, we're adding that stuff back in.
So my question then is, do I try to implement some kind of structural in terms of those different sub teams, or just, hey guys, all hands on deck, whoever's here, if that's the task on the board, you can do it. I'll be here, support you, get that done, and get a robot going so the team has a robot to then focus on programming. Because that's another thing too, is I was really hoping this year that as we build in parts, I will have somebody who will be focused on programming. But the two students that came last year to the competition with us that were interested in programming, one of them took a part-time job, and so he quit. And the other one, he comes in when a monsoon wind comes through town once in a while. And so right now we have our base build, we have concept prototyping, things for our main concept with our grabber. That's where we kind of still are right now. However, we haven't really done anything coding. I think I've made more mistakes today than Thomas Edison did. trying to do robot builder and how you call it, VS Code. I'm tired of computer screen today. Just so any opinion, I have my notepad and I'm open up to suggestion, guys.
I think especially with programming, it's very useful to have someone who's dedicated to that. And then also have someone who's dedicated to the robot build, construction, design process. To do that. I was talking with one of our other mentors last week, and we noticed that it really takes students 2 or 3 years in the program before they can get to the point where they can just run the programming team or the build design team by themselves with very little mentor input. Prior to that, they're still learning, they're still growing, still figuring things out, and they still need a lot of help.
Yeah. And that's a good problem, in my opinion, to have. And that's why I think early on, those of you in the room that are in NMRC network, I just sent out a chatter early on, like, hey, how do you handle one of the best advice I ever gotten was, if one student come, give them your 100%. If two come, make them the team. And that really has been my attitude this build season. Is I have 11 kids on roster, I see 6. And those 6, they come in 2 here, 3 there, 2 here, 3 there. And so when they come in, hey, that's my team for that day, and we're going to do the best we can do for that day. And so it's really one of those where I'm like, hey, if we got a robot on the table, we can figure out the other problems. Programming, we can figure that out probably once we got something to program, and I get that, having that side piece with manipulating, all the different game pieces and those things are very important, but you can't invent what you don't have, right?
I think coming from another person that works with a couple small teams and we've tried doing like applications for leadership roles in the past and didn't really have a lot of success from it. And that might have been on the mentor side of not really holding that up very well. But we got kids coming in at the early part of the season that are like, yeah, I want to be the build mentor or whatever mentor it is. And then when season starts, which is basically all year for us, you don't see them. Like, okay, you signed up to be the captain, and that's what you said you wanted to dedicate yourself to, but you haven't been here for 2 weeks. And then you come in the door and ask what's going on and why stuff is happening in a certain way. And well, we had to move on without you because you weren't present. So we've kind of gone away from that. I think our kids realize who our captains are, unofficial captains are.
Sounds like a conversation in our group on Saturday.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's they know who's coming every week and every day and putting in the time. And when they have questions, they usually go to those student, more experienced students to bounce stuff off of. And that seems kind of like it's working for us. I wish we had 30 kids, and I wish we had, a lead on every aspect of robot building and public relations and scouting and stuff like that. But we just don't have that manpower with the group that we got at our school. So,
Jeremiah, I think with your size of team and the number of students you have committed, you're handling it just the right way. You have students come in, all hands on deck. I think what you're doing is the best that you can do with what you have right now. And the biggest thing is just keep them engaged, make sure that they're enjoying what they're doing, and ask them, hey, do you have friends that want to come out to the team? Ultimately, it's difficult to do an FRC program with 6 kids. Even 11 is, I think, on the smaller end. 15 to 20 kids I found is historically, it's been very good for me anyway in the past, my experiences with the team. So recruitment and making sure the kids are engaged and that they want to come back year after year, I think you're doing it right.
I think the issue, and this is one of the reasons why my wife is next door to her parents. That's why I came late to this meeting. I was like, every Sunday, I'm like, look, the thing is, my commitment to this program is the future. I see, I teach 5, 6, 7, and 8th graders, and we did a STEM program with our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders, and I got younger kids who's already jumping at the bit, and these kids that I know, some of them, they are kids that don't play basketball, that have no interest in ball sport. So I'm really, really anticipating the future, but that's 3-4 years from now in that future. But that's kind of where we are. And so thanks, Ryan, for the encouragement, because I feel like we might just have to keep playing season by season this way until that, until the community, senses that this is a great program for rural manufacturing, agricultural, country. And I keep putting things in the paper, just trying to highlight that point to them, because I'm like, this is where you want your kids to be. If you don't want them going across the country somewhere else, you got to create the opportunity for them to stay here, and FIRST Robotics is one of those key ways to do that. But it's a little frustrating sometimes when your volunteer job takes most of your time than than the job that pays the bill.
So Jeremiah, you're absolutely right. The future is excellent. And Ryan's right. As long as the kids are having fun, they're going to keep coming back. So that's the key. We were at the hub meeting on Friday, and other coaches who've been doing this for a long time are having the same struggle you are right now. And so you're not on an island. So I think that's really important to know. My team used to be big. It's much smaller now. I'm running a 12/13. And the reason I say slash is I have an iffy. But my kids compete, I think, for time. So we have a clock-in system. So they punch in and they punch out. And we do that because we need to track hours, because if they don't have enough hours, they don't get to go to competition.
That's exactly what I'm doing. And I think Scott and I had that conversation. Was it this morning? Because I have these 2 kids on my team. Last year, they seemed like, wow, they were the leader on the team. And this year, basketball and everything else. And so then, those 2 students have a way of, when they show up, I noticed that productivity really go down too. And so when they're not there often, and when they're there, they take everybody else down with them. And I'm like, whoa. And so we kind of implemented the clock hours too. It's like, if you don't make it between 70% and 90%, because I am not going to competition with you and I have to talk about the robot. No, you talk about the robot, because but the more time you spend with it, the more you will have to say about your own robot. Don't
right.
Look at me.
Right. And I think so we've had to tell, like, twice now I've had kids not be able to go, which is not too bad considering the size our team used to be. And that's a tough call, but it is something that you have to do, because otherwise they're going to competition just for a hangout day. They're not going to be an active participant anyway. And so, but we also change things up. So we don't have our communications team really intact. We don't have the body and the manpower for that. So our safety squad are pit kids, because we don't have a choice. We have small batch of kids. So technically this year, our sub teams, we only have 2 if you look at it on paper. And the other pieces, we have to fill it in because our team size right now. And that came so awards, we just don't have the manpower to do these awards. And that was a concern to me. And I brought it up at the hub meeting, and it's something we have to let go, because we don't need to stress the kids out. We want them to enjoy it. We want them to get as much as they can from the program. And so I agree with Ryan, giving these kids something that's, they're excited about, you're doing the right thing. But every coach has got some frustration going on with team participation or student participation post-COVID. So, stick it out. You're doing great.
I'll also share, we all know, No Mythic is by no means a new team. We have been around for, I think, about 15 years. But like a lot of teams, we were really severely affected by COVID. And I think almost all of our team last year had never, at the start of the year, had never had a full first season experience. We had, I think 3 or 4 students that had gone to a competition in person. And so we started off the team with we started off the year with, I think, 11 students, and then we had about 20 students after recruitment. So, there was a lot of, people weren't as engaged in the first half of the build season. But I will share, in our experience, engagement really goes up after competitions. We had, after we went to our first competition in Duluth, we had a lot of people that were really engaged in the program and really wanted us to do well. I'll also name that, we did well at our first competition, and we won an award, and we ended up going to Worlds. But I do think that there are, regardless of how you place at competitions, regardless of how you do, there is certain elements of engaging in the larger first community outside of your team that can really appeal to certain students and really make them engaged in the work of the team. And having those experiences can really, I think, beneficially affect the productivity and the engagement of students on your team. So I would say, engagement can be really low, and that's really disheartening. And, I can't say for sure that engagement will go up at all, but I will say again that certain parts of this program can really appeal to different types of people. So
yeah, on Nightcrawler we do a points system, so you have to have 10 points to travel with the team, and a point is 3 hours of productive work. And so the process for students is, they'll build something or write a subsystem, and then they'll go to a mentor and say, hey, I did this, it took 3 hours, will you sign off on this point? And then they have 2 weeks from the time of doing something to get it signed off. And that's kind of how we manage hours. And I think it works pretty well. I think I really agree with Joseph said, over time, if you have those things, student engagement will increase because they know there's a reason for doing it. I've had conversations with students who have been okay, I really want to get my points. How can I do that in the next 3 weeks so I can go to competition? It's just there's plenty of opportunities. We're meeting quite a bit.
So, and I agree with the both of you. Actually, I do also run the National Fluid Power Challenge at my school too. And I usually, people are oh, why can't you pick the students? I was I don't want to handpick students for stuff that don't really pertain to a curricular thing, because, and even then still, not because someone failed in biology doesn't mean they aren't good about mechanical stuff. And so I like to give these opportunities to students because you never know what might wake them up for something better. And that might be their wake-up call. However, the only difference with what this issue that I'm having this year is the two students I'm having the most problem with. They were at competition in Twin City with us last year. They were at 2 competitions preseason with us this year. So I mean, you should at this moment, like, and at one of our preseason competition, we came first. So it was like, I mean, you seen this, but in my experience with these students at these competitions, I can have them build a skyscraper if I had the material there because, oh, Mr. Miller, can we do this one? Can we do that one? Can we do this? I'm like, let's talk about it when we get back to home base. Because usually as they go into a motivational speech and you're there, you have all these optimism, and then you walk out, it's like, next meeting. But thanks, I really do appreciate it.
So I guess we're kind of in that same boat too. We have a small group of freshmen in them, them underclassmen that they see that outcome, or they're excited and they want to do it, but they're so high strung that then they get lost in how to do it. How do you guys kind of help them see the end goal and keep them going?
I think for us, one of the things that we try to do with students who feel like they seem like they're a little lost, they haven't kind of found their spot. We try to establish some kind of rote training, things that are sort of step by step. We do that for the programmers. Our programming team over the years has really built a pretty robust sort of training regimen. It changes a little bit every year. Our programming captain goes through it in the fall and puts his or her spin on it. And then we've started doing a little bit better training for our build team. We're actually now starting to finally develop a little bit more rigid CAD process, so that if someone looks like they're walking around with nothing to do, we sort of pull them aside and say, hey, what are you working on? And if they don't have anything to do, we say, well, do you know how to do this? Or do you know how to do this? Why don't you sit down and let's go through that training? And usually that happens with a mentor or another student with the buddy system to try to get them engaged and pull them in. But it can be hard to get those first students in. And quite frankly, you end up losing some of them. They just don't come back the next few years. They just never found their groove. But I think for us, I think we found that having sort of some systematic processes, and for what Lexi had mentioned too with points, you complete this part of the training, you get a point. You complete this part of the training, you get a point. You build on sort of that, oh, I had momentum here. I'm getting points. I can make it. I can make it to a competition if I just keep working on stuff.
Yeah, and something that our team this year for training that was really good was the test, which was this off-season competition where in the fall they had a mock game, and then there was a competition like the second weekend of December. So this year our team grew from like 20 to 30 people. So we had a lot of new students, and I think we only had 2 people left on the team pre-COVID. So it was a lot of new students and students who have only built one robot in the past. So something we did was using that off-season mock competition to kind of learn how do we quickly prototype different options, and then how to build them and code them. And so for Code Team, it allowed us to code an entire robot in the off season. And then for build, we learned about overambitious design, and then scaling that back. I was not in the build area for that one, but that is all I will say about that.
All right, well, that kind of sums it up. Thanks for the input.
In regard to the point system that people are talking about, I like it in theory. On one hand, the motivation factor of like the students can, see the objective, get a point for it, get some kind of a reward system out of it. The thing I maybe don't like or maybe don't agree with is I want to bring students to the competition if they've even been there a little bit, if I think they're even a little bit engaged, because I think the competition is where you set the hook on a lot of freshmen that are maybe, half in, half out. I think they get to the competition and they see, what the whole thing is about. And from then on, it's, they're bought in. At least historically, that's how it's worked for me. I don't know if maybe there's a balance between doing that and, having some kind of a point system.
For us, preseason competitions definitely do that. We go to MRI and MMR, and that is usually the point where it's either students are like, oh my gosh, I'm super into this, or no, it's not going to be something. And that's usually the point where you can kind of tell, like, these are the people who are going to slowly drift away over the next month or so. But I totally agree with that. I know even for me as a student, preseason competitions were where it was like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on and it's so fun.
And that's exactly one of the reason why I was encouraged to join the put our team in the NMRC program, and I really do like that because we, having that preseason, and that's, I think Scott and I did talk about some of that, earlier on in the fall. When you have a newbie, it's kind of where you want to bring them to, and that's why, with my dilemma with these two returners, I'm like, for them, if this was a brand new person, matter of fact, actually, I have a senior this year who is phenomenal. She, didn't bring a lot of skill set, but she brought in a lot of enthusiasm. I mean, she worked 6 hours this Saturday, and she one of the last people to close the door out. And proudest moment was I took them out on a tour to Agar, and she looked at me. She's like, I think I know what I'm going to do in college. And I'm like, what is it? Engineering. What kind? Mechanical. I'm like, atta girl, And I mean, it's just, and she is on fire with it. And it's like, man, I wish I had her last year. But you know what? This year is the year to have her. And that's the year she could join. And I get that. And so I like the preseason motivation factor, but I think when we get, and going back to your point, Ryan, is once we get past the preseason, show off type thing, see, this is what the game is about, and you're still kind of dragging. Sometimes with my reservation, sometimes it's being a small school that we don't do a lot of fundraiser actively because we're so small already in personnel. A lot of our funding comes from grants that I have to write, and so our resources are very minimal. And so if you don't show up to even caring anything, and when you show up and there's a drama scene, it's like 3-4 nights in a hotel for you. It sucks to be. I'm a practical person. I'm like, okay, come on. That resource can go towards those other students who actually are, who've been bought into the vision, have some sort of a buy-in, or at least trying to maintain some level of standard. Because, like I shared this document with these kids, I have it color coded, red, green, yellow. So, not to discourage you, but when you're in the red, you can get to yellow, and yellow, you can travel with a team. Green, you definitely there, So it's just those things. It's just sometimes you gotta have to draw the line in the sand. I kind of wondering if I'm drawing too hard of a line.
That is one concern I'm kind of popping into my head with the whole point system of, is it taking the focus away from the robot and turning it more towards, ooh, goal, shiny thing, work towards goal?
Well, I can address some clarification on the point system. So I don't know that it's very rare that we would ever have a student who genuinely is interested in participating in the competition who was unable to attend because of points. One of the things that the points does do for us is that it gets people to show up, but it also makes them make sure they're productive, because you can't come to a mentor and say, I stood around for 3 hours and told jokes with my friends. Can I get a point? It encourages them to say, well, I'm here, but if I want to get a point, I need to find a task tonight. And so generally that tends to work well for us. We don't try to use points as a punitive measure to filter out students who we don't think should go to competition. And I get the idea that it's shiny object. Let's focus on the robot. The kids that are focused on the robots never ever have to worry about points. If you're there working, the mentors will pull you aside and say, "Hey, you never came and asked me for a point for the thing you did last week. Come, go get your point sheet so I can give you a point." So for the most part, it kind of goes back to what Joseph said earlier about how do you deal with students who are just unhappy with decisions about captains or drive teams. We I would love to say that we never have those problems, but of course we do. Just like every team, we have students who are unhappy with decisions. But the more you put, personally, my opinion, the more you put systems and processes around how decisions are made, the less frustration students can have because things seem arbitrary, right? If it's like, well, this is the system, this is how it works, this is how we do things, and you didn't participate as part of the team, um, then those discussions get a little bit easier, right? It's the reason why teachers give you a rubric, because if you don't follow the rubric when you turn in your paper, that's why you got the grade you got. Um, it's not the only way, and it's not even the right way, but points help us a lot more than they hurt us, I think.
I'll let Joseph go and then I'll chime in.
I guess as far as like engagement and its relevance to goal setting, I will say that I think for our experience as a team, as long as I've been on the team, and as long as I think as long as our team has existed, we have found that the most of the engagement that we get from students isn't entirely through the work that we do, and more relevant to our connectivity and the community that people find on the team as a result of the work that we do, and the ways that we do this work together. And so, for our we've placed more of an emphasis, I think, on building that community as a team than, not more so than building a robot, but I do think that like community and that community can really engage students in a way that like building a robot can't. What our head mentor Michael says that people on our team come for the robot and stay for the community, and I think that that's something that is a part of our team that we always consider when we're thinking like should we have students come just because they work on the robot, or will students become more engaged if they see this, like the work that we have done both towards building a robot and building a community at competition. I think that was really why our competitions were so successful and made students so much more engaged last year, is not necessarily because we did well, but because competitions are stressful. The work of this season is really stressful, but we do it together, and people find a lot of connections with each other, and can really bond with each other through the difficulty of this work together. And so I'll say that like when like in this discussion on like should students come to or engage in these activities or events just because they have worked on the team, and are they going to be engaged more if they come to this competition to see the robot? I will share that our engagement is based more on our community. I don't know if that was helpful.
Again, coming from a couple small teams, historically, and our small teams historically have funding challenges being in rural areas, and the last couple of years we've been really fortunate funding wise. But the way we run it for like students going to regionals and stuff like that, we have a time clock that we have students clock in and out, and we track student hours. We usually bring 8 students per team to a regional. So that's all we show up with. And sometimes it's weighted more in one gender than the other between our two teams. But the top 4 people that put in the most hours during the year go through a decision matrix with the mentors, and anybody else that chooses to attend the regional has to write a letter saying why they should be eligible to do so. And then we go through that list of students and determine who's going to be the other participants. So that's the incentive that we use for kids to put in the time. If you're the top 4 on your gendered team, then you're guaranteed a spot pending, academic eligibility and such things like that. So the school pushes on us. But it's worked pretty well. Like you get some kids that are like, I'm going to the regional. I need to be in the top 4. And then you get the others that come along.
Hey, Jesse, can you tell people why you have gender-specific teams? Because I think that might confuse some people.
Sure.
There's a reason why he has 2 teams.
Yeah. So we were co-ed. 3275 was our original team, the Regulators, and in 2010 was their rookie year. And just female involvement at our school was very minimal at that time. We had a few here and there and in and out. And then one of our female students in 2013 said she wanted to build her own robot. So we said if you can get some like-minded people together, we would split, and she did, and we did. So since 2014, we have an all-female team and an all-male team. But they work together when they build. We work together when we strategize. Some years our robots are very similar. The last several years, our robots have been extremely different. Including this year, our robots are very different. So, I don't know. The girls can take ownership of their machine. The boys can take ownership of their machine. We've had a lot of girls that have got more into the engineering aspect of the robot than might have been possible if we remained a co-ed team, potentially. And our girls typically beat the boys. Just saying.
So Jesse, you guys are actually making a pretty big trip this year. Are you doing anything different because of that?
Our Idaho regional, I'm assuming you're referring to?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the biggest trips any Minnesota team's making. So
yeah, we got some really great sponsorship through ACES, which is the American Indian Science and Engineering Society. So if you have any Native American students on your team, by chance, I would do a little research and see if they have some money available for you. They get some of their funding for FRC through Apple Computer. So Apple's kind of the parent of that sponsorship that we got. So they've been extremely generous. We usually do Duluth and Grand Forks, but they're back-to-back regionals this year, and our kids can't be out of school for basically 2 weeks straight. My boss won't let me leave for 2 weeks straight. So instead of we found a place that we thought we could be really competitive at historically, which turns out not to be the case if you actually look at the Idaho Regional this year, because they got some heavy hitters coming in from California for some reason that are going to bump up the numbers of teams that are there from 27 to 45, and we're playing against Team 8, Play Robotics. Like I was thinking we'd come in there and be pretty substantial, but we're going to come in there and we're going to put our best foot forward. But yeah, so that was all sponsor. That was totally because of our sponsors that we were able to.
Are you trying to get more kids to that tournament then, or that was what I was kind of wondering? Is, are you guys changing your criteria for that one or not?
Maybe a little bit. It's going to be kind of based on their performance at our first regional, which is the Great Northern. But then we only have a couple weeks in between. So, and the way it works with buying group plane tickets to fly out there, I already have them booked with names that I can change 50% of the names on the plane tickets up till a week before. So I got my for sure's kind of in there, and then it's kind of be based on how we got a lot of new kids, so it's going to be based on their performance at Great Northern, and if they were really contributing members at that regional, those are the names that are going to make the plane ticket list to head out to Idaho. Yeah, it's crazy. We haven't done anything like that before for a competition. We've gone places and presented. We were out in California doing some presentation stuff this fall, but with a minority of students, and brought our robots out there to do some stuff. But yeah, it's way outside our normal realm, and it's a little nerve-wracking, but it's a good experience for the kids. I mean, there's only 3 or 4 of the kids on my team that have ever been on an airplane before, so that alone is kind of cool.
Ken, you have something?
Yeah, I'm just curious because I heard someone talking about funding earlier. I'm just curious for other teams because, like, for Nightcrawler, our team is not funded by the school at all. I was just curious if other schools are not funded by the school.
Well, that's not totally true, Ken. We get some of our funding from the school, but it's a small amount.
I think, when I think, Scott, you and I have plenty of discussion early on with this, right? And when I came back from Minneapolis, I went up to the principal office / superintendent office because two are the same person. And I was like, but come down to it, it was not until 2 days ago that I was really grateful for what my school does for our team, not necessarily in monetary forms wise. They gave us a nice space, even though it's in a dungeon. So there's a likelihood that our robot this shit might be called like a dungeon bot. And so, but we have this nice space that we can work, and we have storage closet that we could use. We are not building a robot out of my classroom. And also being able to facilitate our transportation now, because I did push hard to recognize robotics as a sport in the school. So now we don't have to rent the school van, student pay activity fee. So we can use the same privileges that the other sport teams have. However, something that's ingrained in our American culture is that if it is not an oval shape or a round shape, a spherical object that we're kicking around or throwing around, booster clubs exist for those traditional sports. So we will constantly compete with those guys, but we all know we may not win that battle. But at the end of the day, though, I think it's important for us to see our schools may not give us monetary, sponsorship. Some schools might pay a little here, but like Scott said, yours might do a little. However, those little things about printing and printing press and all those different things really do add up at the end of the day.
I'll address Ken's question too.
I was just going to say 70-28 too. We're a community ed program. We're not funded by the school. We're not a school sport. Luckily, we've got 3 coaches that they work in the shop, and the school is very supportive. They let us get in there. We spend a lot of time there. We buy all our own materials and have some of our own tools, but we use a bunch of that stuff. But we've been able to get generous sponsors, and we do a bunch of fundraisers. We go do several at Culver's and Pizza Ranch, and we sell Higgy's pizzas, and always are looking for new sponsors, and we've been really lucky to be able to do that. But I've heard of other teams who don't really have the support from the school too, where it's difficult to even get into the shop or to get time, and that's tough. So we're lucky that way, even though we're not a school sport. That gives us some flexibility to set our own path, but it also comes with some drawbacks, and like our kids can't letter and things like that. So, but we do have a booster club. That's something that we started up that helps a lot, that lets us control some of our own destiny. So that's been something that we did the last couple of years that's really made a difference.
And Andrew is actually right about the tools, because when I first started last year, I went up to the shop act teacher, say, hey, we have a nice space. Can we use this space and put our stuff in the closet when we're done and clean up? Nope, can't do that. Liability, OSHA. I mean, it was the rule book went from like top to bottom, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna be building this thing in my classroom. Then it is, I just recently, had a local lumber yard donated some lumber in the fall. We built workbenches down in the basement, and I bought some just recently bought some tool chests and tool. We buying our own tools. So as every season goes by, we apply for grant and say, hey, $2,000 of this will go to the tools. So I'm really optimistic in a few years we'll have our own set of competition tools and our own set of practice tools that make traveling a little bit easier and organized. So, but yeah, I get your point with schools not letting you use the facility like shops. It will be nice, but it's a luxury.
Well, Jeremiah, to your point there, I mean, if you're a teacher at the school and you're employed by the district, you have your own liability policy that's covered by the district. And if you're using tools similar to what the shop tools are, it's between you and the shop teacher at that point. There's no liability thing that says you can't teach a kid how to run a bandsaw.
Oh, it is. It was with the teacher, because one of the things I was told, well, our tools are purchased by grant money just for this, and that doesn't apply to robotics. And I'm like, for goodness sake, aren't we educating all the same kids? But
yeah, you are. And he's
I don't get into a little matches with people, so I just backed off, and I'm like, no thanks, it's not worth my energy. So.
Right.
Should invite them to a competition, get them excited about how amazing the program is, try to get them recruited.
Actually, they did watch us in the Twin Cities. The school that's kind of how our ad administrations are. They had the kids in a classroom, had the competitions, broadcasting, teachers had it on. And so that really did generate a lot of publicity for the team. Even when we did compete in Alexandria over the fall, that was also broadcasted too. And so, yeah, they know what we've done and what we're capable of and the potentials are. It's just sometimes it takes a while to convince people. And so we just keep knocking on the doors.
So from our perspective up in Cass Lake, the school is a supporter of our group. They provide fuel and a vehicle for transportation. We have purchased our own trailers to haul our stuff through our student activity account, finding sponsorship to do so. They provide a stipend, albeit very modest, for 5 mentors between our 2 teams, which we lobbied really hard to do. And if you guys need any information on that, I would happily share anything with you, because I got a lot of all over the state, like Schedule C, what people are getting paid that they have shared with me. They give us a modest parts budget and a modest travel budget. Our school does not enough to cover what we really need to go anywhere or build anything, but it's helpful. They do not provide like coach buses. They do not provide a bus driver. For our Idaho trip, they're not providing anything beyond, mentor stipends, basically. Our students don't pay a fee at our school to be participants in any extracurricular. It is free for everybody. So we don't get that extra income from the district that we can use in any way, shape, or form. But our school does support us pretty well. I've been lobbying for a space where we can set up a practice field. I'm a shop teacher. So we have stuff set up in my shop, and in years past, we roll everything up at night and put it away and then drag it all out the following night. But it happens this year that I teach automotive technology too, and my auto shop, which is a pretty substantial area, is open and available since I don't have an auto class this quarter, which was requested because it's that time of year. So we got half a field worth of carpet out there and field elements out there that just can stay out, and I don't have to worry about it every day, which is fantastic. So school support is so fluctuating between different organizations, and it's I'm a huge proponent of our school should be supporting this as much as they are the basketball team, the football team, the volleyball team, or anybody else. Our kids are doing more than those kids are doing. in so many ways. So if you want some support, I would happily zoom into your school board meeting and tell them why they're doing it wrong.
I have a question back on our leadership topic that I surveyed a few coaches last year and I found really interesting. I'm curious to know, when do teams on the call here select their captains? Do you select them in the spring? Do you select them in the fall? I've heard of teams that do a shadowing, so they actually pick the next year's captain and they're a junior captain. When do you do your captain selections? I'll start. Nightcrawler picks their captains after the at the banquet, which for us is usually after the state tournament. And then their new captains use the optional meetings in the summer. We usually meet 1 day a week in the summer, and they use those optional meetings to start doing planning for training or whatever things that they would like to accomplish the following year. And it gives them a little bit of time to sort of establish themselves in that role.
Yeah, Talon usually does it in the spring, and then we try to have the captains kind of work together over the summer, and then they pick the leads over the summer, and they kind of, they can meet with the other leads. So because if you have graduating students, then they can kind of hand it off. So
yeah, we pick ours in the spring as well, for both captains and as many other leadership roles as we have clear candidates for. We'll pick them because you have to be doing outreach and training during the summer, and we have some events that we plan, and all that happens over the summer. So you have to have people to lead it.
Denfeld picks theirs in the spring so that we can train them to train the incoming freshmen and sophomores on how to build and do business and do all of that other stuff.
So 5464 Cambridge Blue Jackets, they did the shadow option last year for the first time. And the students vote for their captains. The captains have to do the people who are interested in the captain roles do a presentation for the team. And then the team votes for their captain, who they want to be their leader. And the chain of command in ours is you go to your captains first, or you go to your department heads first. Can't get what you need from your department heads, you go to your captains before you even talk to the coach. So when a kid comes to me, the first thing I ask is if they went through their channels first. But last year, because we knew we had some size challenges and whatnot, we did the shadow program. So we knew who our captains were, and they were already in that role shadowing the captains last year.
Yeah, I know something Nightcrawler does is, we also kind of had saying this year, like captain interviews have started already, just kind of with the mindset that you can't just apply to be captain, and if you've like not shown up all season or haven't displayed our team values, just like expect to get the position. So with the caveat of that, then we also have, for students who are interested, kind of like Cheryl talked about, the captain shadowing, like you can go and just like as a student walk around with a captain. They'll explain what they do just to like see if it's something a student would actually be interested in. And we also have captain like handbooks that students can reference and see like what the responsibilities are generally. And obviously that changes over time as different people fill those roles.
We select captains in the very end of the season. So after usually in the back half of May, we'll start the captain selection process. So we will we'll send out a, we'll have a sort of team meeting to where people can nominate certain captains. So people, everyone on the team can nominate a captain for a certain position. And then those captains can accept or deny over the coming weeks. And then we have captains give presentations usually about like a week or two after the nomination process, and then mentors will decide in the week after. That's how we decide on captains.
Really quick question. When people are saying that they select captains, is that a student vote? Is that a mentor vote? Is that a mix of the two? How do teams manage that? And I think some teams have already touched on this already, but just overall.
Yeah, for us, captains fill out an application and then go through an interview process. And then we get feedback from the team, and then the mentors decide.
Our team does it a little different from what I've heard from other teams, because the way, at least since COVID, when I've been on the team, is we've kind of been selecting our captains, team leads, which we kind of have be the same thing, more organically, where we kind of see, over time, there's usually one person in each, sub-team, subgroup that kind of just floats to the top and ends up leading everything. So then, our team recognizes that, and then, that person kind of, becomes a captain, right? So like if you're leading, a sub-team, then you end up becoming a captain. And that seems to have worked fairly well. We try to keep it at, 5 people total, which can sometimes be a little lopsided. Like this year we have 3 mechanical captains, and then me, who's representing both electrical and code, and then 1 operations captain. But I know last year it was like the other way around, where we had 3 electrical code people and 2 build people. And so it's kind of just like, it shifts from year to year, but that kind of seems to have been like where you're getting the most dedicated people who care about the team. And for the most part, the people who want to be leaders and will be good leaders, will lead, and the rest of the team will follow if, they're dedicated and want to.
I think, Joseph, what you Ian, what you said is what we did last year. We got to Twin Cities and we said, well, we needed a team captain, and they all went to the one kid that pretty much stepped up a lot during our build season. However, I learned later on, he found that to be a lot of pressure. He was not ready for it. And so when we came back home, because, sometimes, he doesn't, some of the kids don't communicate better. And his mom told me, he's like, yeah, he think, it's a lot of, expectation of him, because this kid likes to goof off a lot. And so when he's in the leadership role, the goofing has to be a little bit more, curtailed. And that puts a lot of pressure on him. So I get what you're saying. However, sometimes it's like, Ian looks like he's stepping up a lot. Let's make him the captain. Maybe you should ask Ian for if you want to be a captain. Maybe he just enjoy what he's doing. And so that's why he's putting in that much time. And so, but just another, view.
Yeah. And that's partially why we have, a captain's team of 5 people. Like, I know that some teams have, only 1 captain overall. And, for the teams that works for, it's really great. But our team found it better to, if you split that responsibility with 5 people, and because, the people are selected are already doing the leading, and, obviously a captain has to, want to be captain, but it's more of just, there's like a somewhat official thing, but it's not like, it's like only like semi-official, where like everyone acknowledges them as team captains, and like, we occasionally have captains meetings, but it's a lot of these are the people on the team who are leading the team already, and then so they're going to continue leading.
On the topic of sort of division of leadership and team captain, as opposed to like other captains of various different areas of the team, how exactly do you split up? How do different teams split up those responsibilities? Do you have like an overall team captain, or more than one team captain? How do you And I guess with that, what are the roles of that team captain? I know that I don't know if we actually have like a very clear definition of like what exactly it is a team captain does. They are just busy and lead the team, and so some team captains have struggled with their role. So do you have like a clear definition of what exactly your team captains do, and what is your, I guess, stance on team captains?
I'm waiting for Lexi to talk. Lexi is our team captain and she does everything.
I wouldn't say I do everything. So on Nightcrawler, traditionally we've had 3 sub-teams, build sub-team, control sub-team. Traditionally we've had a PR sub-team. Due to low interest, it's been kind of wish-washy this year. So we just have something called like a task force. And so it's like, if you're on build or controls and you're interested in the PR stuff, you can be on that. So we have a captain for each of those sub teams. And generally they kind of manage interpersonal. They're going to lead scrum for their sub team. Kind of like I talked about with that handbook, it's more outlined in there. And then as for team captain, one of the interview questions during our captain selection process is like, what does it mean to you to do that role? And so for me, I think of myself as kind of like the person who's directing the ship as a whole, thinking like we need to put our energy towards here, or, we're kind of getting off course and like we need to redirect with our values, stuff like that. So I'm generally not like in any sub team specifically. We've had previous captains who are like, I'm team captain, but I'm also like actively have my arms inside the robot working on stuff. It really depends on the person. For me, I manage a ton of our communication. I write emails, blog posts. I do a bunch of social media. I do that every week. And then I also generally do like team scrum, stuff like that. So it's a lot of the kind of soft stuff that makes the whole team come together. And that's what I generally see as my job. So that's on Nightcrawler. That's what our team captain role kind of is right now.
Excellent. Lexi, if you ever want to leave Nightcrawler and come to Cambridge, you're totally welcome.
You cannot have her.
Oh,
not let her go.
So Cambridge runs 2 team captains for the team. We always have run 2 team captains because, yes, there's a lot of responsibility. It is true that as someone who is very active in the build, like in Cambridge, we don't have as much of an issue with kids not wanting to be there. This year, we have 6 half my team is new kids. We have that's different. But my kids who've been in, all the way to competition, who've been part of the team, like I have to kick them out of practice. Like it's time to go, get out. I need to go home. So I have those dedicated kids with their arms in the robot on a regular basis. So being dedicated doesn't necessarily mean that you want that leadership role. And so our captains all have pretty much the prerequisite for that mostly is that they have to be a sub-team department head usually to get that captain role. So they're working on their leadership skills that way. They run our team meetings every Saturday. They order the parts. They take care of all that information. They keep the coaches. So they keep us all informed. So they meet with me and, side chats with the other 2. Like our captains run everything. But we also have department heads that run their departments. So the captains and department heads have their own meeting also so that they can get their agenda, all that stuff put together. So it is a lot of responsibility on our team. And it's really a lot because we have, limited resources available. So, but it's really fun watching that development process and watching these kids just grow through, to run everything. Like I believe you do everything, Lexi, because my captains do. So nice job.
One of the things I want to make sure I shared about Nightcrawler selection process, we do interviews, like so many of you guys do. The mentors do captain interviews, and we've struggled over the years to try to get student feedback into that process. Why should this person be a captain? Or if you have any concerns about someone being captain, please send an email. And Dasso, who is on the call tonight, she made a suggestion that has been amazing. And we now specifically ask students to give feedback on how this candidate either fulfills or doesn't fulfill our 5 core values. And that has really brought forward some things that the mentors were not aware of, both good and bad. It's been super insightful and super helpful in identifying the captains that you can really tell the students either feel inspired by or don't, because for asking for very specific feedback as it relates to the team's core values. Well, we're at an hour and a half, which is our kind of where we end up tending to fall. Do we have anything else that we want to, is it like, for example, I wanted to make sure I got in that core values thing before we got off the call. Is there anything else anyone wants to make sure they get in on our leadership topic for tonight before we wrap things up? All right. What do we want to talk about next week?
Something my team has been talking about is what we do at competition. So like in the past, our team has been fairly small, like, 20 or less kids, I'd want to say. So usually we have 16 people come to the competition. That's enough for everybody to usually be doing something at all times, except for maybe like Thursday morning. This year, our team is 30 people large, and one of our concerns has been, if, we keep what we normally do and only invite 16 people up, that's a lot of the team not coming to the competition. I don't think that's, good for our team culture, our team values and things like that. So we want to be able to invite more people, but we also don't know, what to have those people do. So it's not, people just bored sitting in the stands, for 3 days straight. And I'm sure there's, things that teams do, like team bonding and stuff.
That's a very good topic. I like the idea of that topic. I will say that Nightcrawler takes about 40-ish kids and everyone has a job. So that sounds like a good topic. Jeremiah, do you have a topic?
Yeah. Going along with that, just how to prepare going for competition. How do you pack? What kind of things you pack? Not just things you're gonna need or something that I'm gonna have some extra bearings, not just for me, but somebody else might need it. Just those things. I got a ton of belts. Somebody might need a belt. Just those kind of things for, just how to get ready for the event. Besides robot building.
Do we have consensus? Should we make it a competition focused meeting? What do we do at competitions and how do we get there? All right. I think that's a great topic. Let's do that. All right. Thanks, everyone. I should post the link for the sign up form. I forgot to do that. Does anyone have the link handy for the sign up form? We should post that so that you can pass that along. It's in the email. So most of you have gotten the email that reminded you about this meeting. Pass along the sign up form email. I usually send out the reminder Friday, Saturday time frame with the invite to the meeting link. So please pass that along. We had a great group tonight. I look forward to having another great discussion next week. There we go. Lexi posted the invite link. Thank you, Lexi.
No problem.
All right. With that having been said, thank you again. I thought this was a great conversation. I really look forward to having like informal conversations in the hallways of competition over a lot of these types of topics once we start seeing each other at competitions. So thanks again, and I will see you all next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
That's it for this week's FRC Roundtable. Join us live all season long, every Sunday night. Visit the website at team2052.com/FRC Roundtable to sign up for weekly invites. In the meantime, keep building, keep learning, and we'll see you next week.